this opening supply or demand within the first hour of New York opening time is very, very often a trap for buyers, okay? What happens is they get trapped out of it, okay? And people expect it to push down. As you can see, look, it retests that zone, it pushes down, and then it blows straight through. Good morning, everybody. In today's video, we're going to discuss a couple of trades we took from the past couple of days, a couple of losses, and then ultimately a win. Sorry, one loss and a couple of wins that took us into some really good positions. I'm also going to be talking through what I'm looking at for this morning, how I'm going to be trading this morning, what I'm going to be looking at, how I'm going to be taking it, and yeah, hope you enjoy. As always, if you're not already doing so, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, place any likes and comments below. So, as you can see on EURUSD, we are heavily bearish, and bearish is our favoured trades, and we are potentially going to look into getting into a trade from one of these areas. This is a little bit early for me. I wouldn't be looking to trade kind of 6:30, 7:30. We run the risk of price will often have a habit of kind of sweeping either side of the marketplace and then making a move like this. We have rejected a key area here that I'll talk you through. So I'm not in a rush to get into here. I'm going to be kind of watching and waiting and seeing what's happened. And very similar to GBPUSD as well. We have potential to go bullish, we have potential to go bearish. So I'm just going to be waiting on the sidelines and seeing what we're going to be looking at doing, really to get into these trades. Now let's talk you through a couple of trades that we took the past couple of days. So this trade here, let me just play back the replay tool. This trade here was taken after a big bearish push down. Now, whenever we have a big bearish move like this, when we get into areas of liquidity, like this is a daily level here, we are expecting it to reject in some way. Okay, as you can see here, we had a daily level that was broken and price pushed down, and it tagged this major level, which if I've marked a major level, it's a major swing point. Okay, and these major swing points are very sensitive to price reacting from. These major swing points on higher time frames, like this is the 4-hour chart, is probably visible on the daily chart as well. Yeah, so it's visible on the daily chart as well. This major area, we don't need a huge amount of pips to get 3, 4, 5R out of the trade, and so I'm not looking to swing trade this position all the way up to here. That's not how I trade. I'm looking for small move from an area of sensitivity, and this major zone here being tagged, is ultimately a really good area that we could be looking at. So if we just look down into the lower time frames, let's see what happened. So we marked out this this demand zone here. Let's just try and find it. So this was a resting piece of demand. We can probably have tightened it to something like this. Okay, we had resting liquidity sat just underneath there. Okay, and this resting liquidity is a key factor. If you've watched the webinar that I've just loaded, webinar 6, we talk about resting liquidity and how important it is. Resting liquidity combined with imbalance of some kind is a really powerful tactic to get into trades. Now, the reason why this zone didn't hold, in my belief, is although we had resting liquidity, okay, what we would have expected if we were going to trade this, okay, is expected something like this, and then a push out of the zone, clearing out that liquidity, tagging this zone and breaking off. But there was no imbalance left. What I would have liked to see is some imbalance left in here. Very similar to this here, look. Okay, you can see price had resting liquidity, okay, there. That's our resting liquidity. Let's just draw it on. That's our resting liquidity there, okay. And price tagged this imbalance. And as you can see, it held and it rejected really, really well. I'm looking for all three. I'm looking for a demand zone like that. I'm looking for imbalance, and I'm looking for resting liquidity. And those are my favored zones where I'm going to be looking at reversals. That being said, this isn't an area that I'm not looking for a reversal from, but I'm not also expecting it to hold, okay? So I'm going to be watching when price gets into here. Now, what did price do, okay? As you can see, it's come all the way down. It started to become a little bit sensitive. When it swept the daily level, it did actually give us an entry. And if you'd been quite early on that trade, you would have been ultimately stopped out. But because it didn't have all three factors that I'm looking for, the resting liquidity, the imbalance, and the supply or demand zone, for me, this is an area that possibly we could have been swept. And as you can see, what does price do? It clears out the entire area, okay, which is why then I'll delete that, like that, and that, get rid of that, okay. We taken out that daily level, and then we've tagged this major area. Now, a clean rejection of this major area for me is enough for me to get in. What would have been cleaner, of course, is if price had come down to retest maybe this imbalance there. Okay, we've got that imbalance sat in that zone there. So that might have been, you know, a better trade, okay? But we didn't get it. And because I know that we're already in a sensitive area looking for rejections, also the fact that we've got a big push away, I was happy to take the trade on the rejection, okay? Now, it didn't really move how I wanted it to move. We're coming into kind of 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. We're getting to areas where price is just going to meander and, you know, not really give us too much. So ultimately, I came out here. I took 1.5 out of the trade, and I was really happy with the result ultimately, okay? Now, yesterday, we had a huge news move down, okay? This news move took out a daily level, okay? It swept out that level there. It took out resting liquidity here, okay? It took out resting liquidity there, and then it rejected. Now, I didn't get involved in that move. That's not a move that I'm interested in getting involved with. News-based moves, when they initially react, I'm not interested in that. What I want to do is I want to pick up afterwards and see what we can trade afterwards, okay? First things first, we had a clearance of this major level, okay? And then we started to reject. Now again, like yesterday's trade, I'm looking at that and thinking, do you know what? That's an area that possibly I'd like to have a trade on. And if we zoom out and just see what it tagged into, what do we have there? Yeah, resting liquidity there, okay? And once again, same thing that happened yesterday, sorry, the day before yesterday. We had our resting liquidity there, let's mark that on, okay? We had our demand zone underneath here. Let's draw that one out as well, okay? And let's just get that out there, okay? And then we literally swept the demand zone, and then ultimately we rejected, okay? Now that, for me, is a reason why this zone didn't hold. I probably took that a little bit early, and it ended up in a loss, okay? I'm happy to admit my losses. But equally, this zone didn't hold perfectly either. It did reject ultimately, okay? And this trade was taken about 9 o'clock in the morning, so it was good timing, okay? But for me, this failed because what really I should have been doing is, if I was going to take a buy from here, I should have seen this major level cause us some kind of better reaction where it kind of holds above, something like that, where it holds above the level, this major level here, and then rejects, okay? But it didn't. It pushed all the way down, gave us a kind of rejection pattern, but it was actually just a corrective move to take out some liquidity below, as we can see there. Now, if I can just find the trade that I did take, it'll be here somewhere. It's gone for some reason. Okay, so the trade that I did take, let me just check on my MT4. The trade that we ended up taking was, okay, that's why. It was on GBPUSD, okay? So, whenever New York opens, it usually creates a trap, okay? Price has been bearish. New York will often give us a reversal, okay? What we've seen here is that price has set up as if it's going to push down further, and then it's rejected. This opening supply or demand within the first hour of the New York opening time is very, very often a trap for buyers, okay? What happens is they get trapped out of it, okay? And people expect it to push down. As you can see, look, it retests that zone, it pushes down, and then it blows straight through. So it's a really, really good hack to be looking at, okay? Now, for me, I actually took this on the GU version, okay? Which is exactly the same. Now, this is exactly what I was just talking about, okay? What we want for these major levels to hold is we want them to literally hold price and to create some sort of structure above them, and then we can get involved on them. What we didn't have on EURUSD, as you can see, is we didn't have that major level here hold price. Price blew through. Yes, it gave us that correction, but it wasn't held on that major level, which is why this trade ultimately failed. The GU version of it, however, it did look, and it gave us the setup that we're looking for, okay? It gave us our, where are we? Let's just find it again, okay? So it gave us our push up, push down, push up, tagging the trap, push down, and then for me, that's enough for me to get involved. I've got involved in that trade, okay? What I'm looking for at these levels is either a new structure to be formed above the level, or I'm looking for our MSU setup, which would be something like that, okay? Manipulation, and then a push up. Those are my two setups that I'm taking now religiously. Okay, I'm pretty happy with those. MSU setup is ideal. The rejection setup is also just as good, and either one I'm going to be taking. Now, you can see I left a lot of profit on the table here. Okay, I was pretty happy yesterday that I got my percentages out, and I was happy to come out of it here. What is another thing to keep an eye out for is the news related traps. Now, it hasn't actually swept out on GBPUSD yet. Okay, that's because there was 2 events of GBP news, and this move down was just too much for it to handle. But I wouldn't be surprised if today we actually clear out this trap, okay, tag into some of that imbalance, and then maybe look at rejecting from there. So this is why I'm going to be keeping an eye on it. EURUSD, however, as you can see here, very clearly has taken out that news trap. Now, a lot of people will see these areas as areas to go short from, and you can see you'll get into some setups, a sweep, rejection, and you could have taken a trade there, but you would have been stopped. You could have taken a trade there, but you would have been stopped. So these news areas that create these huge, good-looking supply and demand zones, they are normally just manipulative moves, which often means that they are swept themselves. So something to be watchful for. Now, where I would be trading this is if this zone had created something like this, if it wasn't as impulsive, okay, and we'd had pricing leave us behind maybe an imbalance here, okay, let's just get rid of that trap for now, leave us behind an imbalance there, and then give us maybe some rest and liquidity there, that is a zone now that I would be paying a close attention to be looking at shorts from. But because it's such an impulsive move down, okay, the chance of that actually rejecting from there and this zone holding is much, much lower. And what's much more likely is that we're going to get a sweep of that area, which is exactly what's happened. Now that that area has been swept, we can of course be looking for trades to go short, and I've got an alert set on both of these now, here and here. If we get a manipulation, I'm going to be considering looking at shorts. Okay, it may be stopped out for this to be swept, but we'll see what happens. And if you keep an eye on my Instagram story, you can watch as I unfold throughout the day. As always, thank you for checking in, guys. Please make sure you subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.